Hi there, I'm Randy Patterson, and this is Psychology Salon, a channel about psychological issues. If you like this kind of thing, click subscribe. This post is about LGBTQ issues, but it's mostly directed to parents, specifically parents who have recently had the experience of their young person coming out to them as gay or lesbian or trans. Now, a lot has changed in the past few decades. In the past, we'd expect parents to be shocked, appalled, and rejecting, just because that's what happened a lot. That may have been a normative response, not a helpful one, but pretty common. During the height of the AIDS epidemic in the late 1980s, for example, there were hospices for men who were dying. And many of those patients were never visited by their families. You see, to the families, those men had died the moment they came out or were discovered by their family to be gay. He's not my son anymore. Many of us in the LGBTQ community were revolted by the heartlessness and immorality, yes, I use that word, of all this, but it happened with some regularity. Today, many people live in much more accepting environments. So accepting that it's not supposed to matter to you at all when you learn that your son or daughter is other than you thought they might be, other than you expected. You're supposed to light up when they come out to you, say all the right things, be overjoyed for them, and maybe throw a party with a rainbow-colored cake. And some families manage that, but many don't. Parents have strong feelings at this news, and they often can't or don't want to disguise those feelings. One of the reasons that people come out is that they just don't want to hide who they are or how they feel anymore. But parents can feel that they have to hide how they feel from everyone. And if they don't, they're evil, they're heartless, they're rabid homophobes. Some parents feel they can't talk about their fears or concerns or disappointments with anyone. If they open up to their friends, maybe they'll be rejected. How can you think that about your child? It's not safe to talk about your reactions or any reservations that you might have. Not with your son or with your daughter, not with your friends, maybe not even with a therapist. You'll just get diagnosed as a bigot, a homophobe, some dinosaur from early in the last century or the one before that. Someone who never should have had children in the first place if you weren't fully prepared to accept whatever and whomever you got. You will be shamed. But let's unpack that a bit. When someone comes out, there's usually been some time between realizing it themselves and telling family about it. Virtually nobody has the thought come into their head, hey, I'm gay, and immediately says, hey, mom, just guess what I just figured out? There's a gap. Typically, that gap is years wide. LGBTQ people grow up in a world with a lot of ideas about what it is to be LGBTQ. And not all of those ideas are so positive. You learn about all kinds of things, and you're sitting in this kind of cultural soup with all kinds of stereotypes and attitudes and preconceptions and, yes, prejudices. Naturally, you take some of those on, even without realizing it. And then at some point you think, wait a minute, that's not just those people. I think I'm one of those people. I'm like that. And it occurs to you that many of those stereotypes or negative ideas might apply to you too. This is what we mean when we talk about internalized homophobia, because we grow up in the same culture. We take on those same beliefs, and then we apply them to ourselves when we realize we're in that group. So there's a period of looking at yourself and learning about the LGBTQ community and separating out some of those ideas, learning which ones are false, most of them, and which ones are true of some people, but not most, and learning that you are still you and entitled to all the diversity that we see in the non-LGBTQ community. You can and should still be who you are. You're a gay mechanic. Fine, join the club. You're a lesbian who likes needlepoint. Fine. So? And you get to the point where you can hear, oh, all gay men are like this, all lesbians are like that. And it doesn't affect you much because you know it isn't true. But there is that wide gap between realizing and coming out. And there's a lot of processing that takes place in that time. So let's switch to the parent in this equation. Your kid comes out to you. And how much of a gap have you got between hearing and responding? About 3 seconds. So what are the odds that you're going to come up with the most wonderful, intelligent, thoughtful thing ever? Practically zero. And lots of coming out stories go off the rails because the person coming out has had all this time to think, and the person they come out to has no time at all and says something they didn't really think about. This is normal. So what about beyond that? Remember, most parents in this situation are heterosexual and not trans. So this hasn't been a central aspect of your life. You haven't read a bunch of books or sat and thought a lot about it. There's a lot of stuff to think about in life. You can't be a PhD of everything. And we absorb ideas and associations automatically as we go along. We may not even know we have them. It takes time to look at them and decide whether they're valid. And there's something else. You have a relationship with your kid, but you've spent many years raising them. And what's that about? Well, you're raising them to be an adult, something in the future. Automatically, you have 2 relationships. One with this kid who actually exists, and one with the future adult who doesn't. You've thought idly about what it will be like when they're 20 or 30, what it might be like to be a grandparent, what their wedding might be like, who they might bring home someday to expand your family. Every parent does this. They have a whole future history for their kid and a relationship with that imaginary person. And every parent has to adjust that image and let go of bits of it as their young adult emerges. Oh, he's not going to be a lawyer like you, after all. Oh, okay. Ah, she's more talented with math than language. Oh, okay. Most of that is a pretty gradual process. And you know that some parents do that better than others. For some, it's like their kid doesn't like fishing and it's the end of the world. Mostly, though, parents learn to let go and let their kid be a separate human. But one day your kid comes out to you, and this is a big change, and it happens in a single moment. And your kid says, I don't get it. I'm still the same person. You just know more about me. But something invisible has happened. All of a sudden, whole swaths of that future relationship dissolve. It's like they just killed off this imaginary future son or daughter that you've had ever since they were born, and you loved them. The imaginary one and the real one. What if they replaced the imaginary one with nothing? You don't know. You're not an expert in gay or trans stuff. Where you had a whole imagined future, now you don't know what happens next. Will there be a wedding? Will it be one you like? Will there be kids? Should there be kids? What happens with our religious faith? What happens to our relationship? Do they go off to some gay mecca and we never see them again? Am I losing this entire relationship with the real one as well as the imagined future? Whereas there was this tentative vision of the future, now there's just a big blank. You had two kids, the real one and the imagined older one, and one of them is now gone. The real one just killed off the future one because you can't tell what happens next. And maybe you think, I've never really known one of those LGBTQ people, not that closely. And here my kid, closest relationship in my life, has just become a stranger, or so it seems right now. So what is that? Now someone is going to criticize me for saying this. What is it? It can be a grieving process. You're being asked to let go of something important to you, that imaginary future, that imaginary world, and jump into a void. And what you may find is that you're not capable of doing that instantly. There's a whole process of adjustment, and that process can get interpreted by your son or daughter as rejection, and for that moment, they're right. How do you adjust? How do you rethink? And does this need to adjust mean that you are a terrible human being? No. It means you are going through a normal process. Our brains just do not shift gears that fast. That doesn't mean they're stuck in one gear forever. It just means it isn't instant. There are ways for this all to go wrong. One way, which is somewhat understandable and normal, is to want things to shift back to the security and certainty of before. You know, have your son or daughter take it back. Just kidding, Mom. But that's not going to happen. Or maybe you can get them into a therapy designed to make them change back. Trust me, that doesn't work either. Or maybe you can tell them and yourself it's only a phase and that soon things will be back to normal. Typically, not a phase. This is a quest to get you back to the understandable world that you just left. Now, another problem is having to do it all by yourself, not being able to share your thoughts with anybody else for fear that they'll reject you or call you a mindless homophobe or say that you're a bad parent. You can feel like you're not allowed to go through this process and just pretend there isn't one. Paste a smile on your face and go on. You may want to discuss all this with your son or daughter, but that may not go so well. They're well down the road in this process of adjustment. By the time they came out to you, they've thought about it. They've done some work. They see themselves in a new way. It's a tricky process for them and a threatening one. If you say you're just not there yet, or that you need to think things through, this might not be greeted with a lot of enthusiasm. There's a great cartoon about this I reread recently that shows all the lousy ways a parent, in this case a mom, reacts, plus one that's labeled the correct reaction, which is the mother hugging her son and her saying, "I love you." No more, no less. But in this cartoon, there's also a thought balloon where she's thinking, "Jesus, I need a martini." But she doesn't actually say that. And it's still, that's the right reaction. So it can be helpful to find someone to talk to. But who? And that's where I get stuck, because I don't know your world or your community. I can tell you that there are some great books for parents out there. And there are organizations like Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, PFLAG, that can offer compassionate help and support. But who else? Some therapists are very good at this kind of work, but there are some that will just see this as you should be happy, and if you're not, you're being an unsupportive parent and get over it. How do you tell? The reality is, I don't know. One thing I'd suggest is if you're seeing a therapist, show them this video. But I think there's a strange answer that's more likely to be helpful. A bit counterintuitive. Something you might not think of. LGBTQ therapists think about these issues a lot, and we have usually seen all kinds of family reactions. You might suppose that a gay therapist would be the least accepting of parental challenges and the most prone to seeing homophobia around every corner. But often, we're not. We have more than a surface understanding of the issues, many of us. And we can set aside many of the ideas about how you should be and what you should think and help you understand this new and strange and therefore sometimes frightening aspect of your life. I don't think that's a perfect answer, and there are no guarantees. My point with this post is simply that we do not turn big psychological corners on a dime, and that it's possible to grieve a fondly held image without being a monster. We've all grown up in a rejecting world, and we haven't taken a close look at everything. There hasn't been time to do all that. Many of us are doing it now with regard to racial issues, and it's a gradual and long road. When your kid comes out, they dump you into this process, sometimes without warning. It's going to take some time, and it's worth doing. The vast majority of parents realize that many of their associations are not helpful, that there's more complexity than they've ever thought of before, and their relationships with their LGBTQ offspring mend and grow. That future vision didn't really die. It just turned a bit of a corner. Sometimes it can take a while to steer your way around that corner. There are other videos on this channel on the psychology of everyday life. Click the subscribe button for more. I have an online course site, psychologysalon.teachable.com, with programs for professionals and for the general public. And my book, How to Be Miserable, 40 Strategies You Already Use, is available from online booksellers. Thanks for watching.